Before installing the mounted binoculars that I built in the previous video, I need to make a few more components for the air defense platforms. I'm going to start by making voice pipes. To make these, I'm going to use 0.2mm lead wire, and I'll dip the end in Mr. Surfacer 500, which is quite thick when it's unthinned. Once the surfacer at the end of the lead wire has dried, I'll cut off the end and use that to represent the opening for the voice pipe. I need to make 8 voice pipes for the forward air defense platform, but since I'm not sure that I'll get all these drops to be the exact same size and that they'll all dry in a good shape, I will make a few extra. Once the surfacer has dried, I cut off the ends and then do a test fit on the air defense platform. Once I have one at the correct length, I use that as a reference to cut all of the voice pipes to the same length. Lead wire is very convenient to use for this. It's very malleable and it will stay in whatever position you bend it. You don't have to worry about it springing back. That malleability can also be a bit of a downside because it will never really have the strength to stay put. But in this case, almost the entire length of the lead wire is going to be glued to the side of the splinter shield, and the top is encased in surfacer, and that will give it some extra strength. I'm not exactly sure where these voice pipes should go on the air defense platform. There just aren't a lot of pictures of this area of the ship. So I'm going to take inspiration from World of Warships, other models, and some images that I've seen of this area of the ship. To that end, they're going to be installed in pairs, forward and aft of the ADO position. To install the pipes, I place a small drop of glue at the base of the hoist pipe and then position it on the model. I'm going to come back later and bend the top into its correct position and then glue the full length of the pipe to the splinter shield using extra thin superglue. I'm really only using the extra thick superglue to tack the voice pipes in place. That way, if I need to reposition them, there's not much glue that I have to pull off. Once all the voice pipes are in position, some of them are a little bit taller than others, and in fact all of them are just a little bit too tall, so I carefully use a blade to cut them all to the same length. Once they're all the same length, I use tweezers to bend the opening of the voice pipe away from the splinter shield. Once I'm happy with the positions and shape of all of the voice pipes, I glue them in place using extra thin superglue. One last detail for this area of the ship needs to be constructed. That is a switchboard. It's in the shape of an I, a capital I. To construct the switchboard, I use 1.5 by 0.25mm styrene stock for the center section, and for the edge sections I use 1mm by 0.25mm styrene stock. I glue the sections together using Revell Contactor Professional. There is some uncertainty as to how many switchboards there are on the forward air defense platform, so I built 2. In the end, I'm only going to use 1. Now that everything is constructed and ready to be installed, I can move on to painting. First, I'm going to paint the voice pipes, which I've already installed using a brush with XF53. Then I'm going to load some XF53 into the airbrush and paint the mounted binoculars and switchboards. Once the paint is dried, installation can begin. Due to the very constrained space at the front of the forward air defense platform, I'm going to install a lot of these components loose first and make sure that they all fit. And then once they are in position, I'll glue them down using extra thin superglue that I'll apply to the base of the mounts. I'll start with ALOs in each of the corners at the front of the air defense platform. And then I place the 2 ADOs on the forward air defense platform. Once the ADOs are in position, I then place the compass between the forward ALOs. To represent the compass, I'm using the base of an ADO. I haven't attached any Photo-etch to it. It seems to be at least a reasonable approximation of what a compass would look like. I am considering scraping the paint off of the top of the compass to give it a brass look. Well, it would actually be brass since it is a brass part. That might help make it more convincing as a compass. Once these forward components are in place, I then adjust them so that I'm happy with their position, and then I glue them down using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. They do have a tendency to move around a bit as I apply the glue, so I just have to be careful to try and keep them as straight as possible. Once all the forward components are glued down, I then move on to the aft ALOs. The space here is far less constrained, but I do want them to align with each other, so I place both of them in their holes loose and then also glue them in place using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. Moving back onto the upper air defense platform, here I'm not going to install the ADOs. not until I've installed the rear legs of the tripod mast. I'm just concerned that if I were to install the rear legs of the tripod mast after installing the ADOs will get damaged. It is going to be a bit of a rough thing to get those legs in position. So instead I'll install these forward components, the ALO-like things. In this case it's an ALO without a seat, but I'm not sure that that's actually correct. But I do know that there should be something there that is of the similar size to an ALO. This is the best that I could do. These mounts have the shortened base so that it doesn't stick all the way through the platform and be visible from underneath. That does mean though that the hole does go all the way through the platform, and I can apply the extra thin super glue to the underside of the mount. So I do that instead just to avoid getting a little bit of glue on the deck. The last detail for the forward air defense platform can now be added, and that is the switchboard. As I said, I'm just going to use one of the switchboards. I'm going to place it sideways in the center of the forward air defense platform. And with that, we go from a very bare forward air defense platform to a very crowded forward air defense platform. It is quite amazing how much equipment was packed in such a small area. And that kind of makes it a bit egregious that both the FlyHawk kit and the base kit had no detail in this area of the ship. In the next video, I'm going to continue working in this area of the ship. I'm going to install the rear legs of the tripod mast and then install the ladders and railings that goes behind them. If you would like to support this channel or see how this ship looks when it is completed, then please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Cheers.